So welcome everybody. I'm Erik Randall. Today's webinar is going to be on understanding 5G. As Dawn mentioned, I am the channel manager here at Baicells. Ben, you want to say a couple quick words?
Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you again for joining us, taking a few minutes out of your day to understand 5G. My name is Benton Cook. I am one of the business development managers over here at Winncom Technologies, proud partner of Baicells, and excited to get this webinar started.
Awesome, thank you. So we're going to go through a quick agenda, and then we'll get into, of course, the meat and the potatoes. So to start, we're going to go through about Baicells, about Winncom, who we are, what we do, why we do it. And then we'll get into the need for 5G. So we're constantly hearing about private LTE out there, whether it's 4G or 5G. We're going to talk about 5G. We're going to go through the details of who wants it, why they want it, and then on top of that, some key words. After we go through the need for 5G, we're going to talk about 4G versus 5G versus the 6 gigahertz. So that new frequency that's showing a lot of promise right now. We're going to get into why enterprises love 5G. We're going to show the benefits of Baicells 5G, and then some of the emerging use cases for 5G. Lastly, we'll get into the early adopters of 5G and why it's so important to look at 5G moving forward. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. So about Baicells, who we are, what we offer, and why we do it. So what we offer is a complete turnkey 4G or 5G solution, not just the products, but the entire solution. So whether you need an eNode B, a CPE, or even a core, we could offer you one or all of it. Part of why we love doing this is it's LTE. Everything's so interchangeable. You could use products, not just Baicells, on your LTE network. So what we offer is that complete turnkey solution, but we do have just the products to mix and match with others. Who can benefit from us? Basically anyone. When we came to the US back in 2016, a lot of service providers used us. We had a great fixed wireless solution that used LTE. Now, as we continue to advance beyond just fixed wireless, because we are more than fixed wireless, you can utilize us in mobile applications, any kind of different first responder situations, anywhere where you need something like an LTE, you could deploy your own private network. So why we do it, our main goal is to connect the unconnected, doing more with less. So we provide a private cellular network that is less expensive than our competition. So again, we came to North America in 2016. We actually started in 2014. This weekend is actually our 10-year anniversary of when we started. So we've been around for 10 years now. We've had over 500,000 eNode B shipped globally. Here in the US, we've had over 800 private networks deployed. You can see some of the other stats there. Another one I like to tout about is our global tier 1 operators. There's a lot of tier 1 operators out there utilizing us in their network, and there's a lot of OEMs out there utilizing us as well. We probably have the best small cell LTE globally. And we are, again, 3GPP standardized for easy interop with other LTE manufacturers. All right, so now I'm gonna switch this over to Benton, have him talk about Winncom for a minute.
Thanks, Erik. You're doing a great job. Winncom Technologies, we are a worldwide distributor. So, in a nutshell, anything and everything that you are currently using in your network or looking at using within your network, we are a distributor for. So everything from radios to dishes to cables to routers to switches, and anything and everything on a tower site, and obviously at the bottom or in the network operations center as well. So we have a full team of experts from not only a sales standpoint, but also an engineering standpoint. We have our headquarters are in Solon, Ohio, right outside of Cleveland. We also have distribution centers in Miami. We have a full CALA team as well as a European team. So we are a global distributor. So it's not just America that we cover. So if you have any projects that you're working outside of America, please let us know, and we can probably have a team dedicated for that as well. So again, full range of network infrastructure and access products. And really, again, the gauntlet can be run as far as what we offer. If you look at the screen, you see that as we scroll through, there's everything from those radios to those switches to those routers, all the way down to a butterfly clamp that you might use on a tower site. So there's really nothing that we don't offer for what you're currently using or looking at using. So don't ever hesitate to reach out to us for any type of product need that you're looking at. We have a solution for it somewhere in our portfolio. We also have a full engineering team. One of the biggest things that I like to tout about Winncom is our engineering team. Our director of engineering, Kyle Barnes, is a former operator himself. So he understands the needs, the wants, the desires, the headaches, the pain points that you're currently going through. He has a full team behind him. We can do everything from heat maps to design networks. We can do point to point, point to multi-point, private LTE, all the way down again into the guts of the network with routing and switching. So we like to consider ourselves more than just a product distributor. We are a full service distributor that can offer pretty much anything and everything under the sun. And the engineering side of it is one of the strong points of our company. So as you start rolling out this private LTE network or start looking at that private LTE network, please rely on us for more than just the product. We have a full team dedicated to make sure we measure twice and cut once, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to be most important for you to not only save time, but also money as well. So we want to be a part of your project from beginning to end. We also have a entire finance team. We can get extremely creative with pricing and financing. We have partners throughout the leasing industry. So if you have any issues with capital, we can definitely help on that side as well. Obviously, a dedicated and knowledgeable sales team, myself included, but we have people who've been doing this for 10, 15, 20 plus years. So our engineers are obviously exactly that, but the sales team is extremely educated and knowledgeable as well. And then we have a full marketing team as well. So as you start rolling out, we've been there, we've done that, we've been in business for 20 plus years, and so we have an entire marketing team that can help, if nothing else, with just kicking around ideas and helping you get yourself and your company off the ground if need be, or even expanding beyond where you currently are. So again, we are a full-fledged distributor of not only product, but we do have the ability to help out with every aspect of what it is you guys are doing with your company and with your networks.
Perfect. Thank you, Benton. So the one thing I will say about Winncom's engineering team is we were deploying an LTE at a place in Southern Ohio once, and all of a sudden they weren't able to have any more devices installed on there, and the operator couldn't figure out why. So they called up Winncom to get a little support on it, and Winncom went out there with one of their scanners, IB Wave scanners, and found that another operator just started deploying illegally in that same area, and they were just blasting everything. So we got a hold of the other operator, and they toned down what they were doing, went on the right frequencies, and everything worked out well. Without having that support from Winncom at that time, I don't know how much longer it would have taken before that operator was able to start installing again. So definitely look out for Winncom's engineering services as well. All right. So before we go on and get started with the need for 5G, questions are open, guys. We'll answer them as we're talking. So if you have any questions, just type them in the chat, and somebody will either interrupt or we'll have a stopping point where we can see the questions and we could answer it live with you guys. All right.
Yeah, and
So
to chime in on that, Eric, for the people in attendance, the more interactive this is, I think the more beneficial it is for not only yourself, but the other people listening and watching, because you might ask a question that they didn't think of that could be extremely helpful for them in their deployment. So please, if you have questions, chime in, and we'll be more than happy to answer them as we go.
all right, cool. So let's get started. The need for 5G. All right. So again, you heard me talk about private LTE 4G earlier. What is the big deal with 5G? Why is it getting to be so much more of an answer to the questions? So emerging and growing tech requires more data, more connections, more throughput, and more data analytics. That data is for artificial intelligence. We see it popping up everywhere, and there's always questions about it. So you need more data for artificial intelligence, more connections. As you're looking at these warehouses, you have IoT everywhere, oil and gas, IoT everywhere. So you need those extra connections to keep that latency where it needs to be with IoT. More throughput for your cloud um, software solutions, and then more data analytics for those edge points so you understand what's going on. We are entering a hyper connected age where everything we do is going to be connected through, whether it's the internet, whether it's the cloud. All of that is now starting to become more of what we're looking at. So we're hyper connected. And how do organizational leaders feel about all this? So 86% of organizational leaders say that LTE and private networks will transform their organizations within 3 years. 79% say it will transform their industry within 3 years. That's a huge number there that organizational leaders feel will happen in the next 3 years. All right. So 5G, a review of terms and the spectrum. So NSA versus SA, you have non-standalone and standalone. This basically is going to be how your base station connects back to your core. That G node B connects back to the core. Non-standalone is able to connect to a 4G or 5G core, whereas a standalone is only able to connect to a 5G core. Your max modulation, so modulation is going to help with throughput. The higher the modulation, the more throughput you can get through the link. In 4G, you can do 256 down. In 5G, you do the same. For the uplink, that communicating back, 4G currently maxes out at 64 QAM, whereas 5G goes up to 256 QAM. So there's a huge improvement there. And now your configurations, your downlink to uplink ratio, in 4G, it was called subframe assignment. You see the downlink to uplink ratios in other products too, like your Cambium, like your Toronto, your proprietary solutions. So you have the same thing in 5G, and it's called paridicity. So you see there with 100 megahertz, one paridicity, 3 to 1 will get you 850 down. With the dual paridicity, getting you 660 megs up, again, across 100 megahertz. So you see that that's a huge improvement from the current LTE that you have out there. Biggest question that I get asked most often is the propagation studies. Is it going to be worse? 5G uses the same antennas and the same power out as 4G. So you can expect the same propagation studies as 4G, just you have that more bandwidth providing you with more throughput. And your latency, you can expect about 10 to 15 milliseconds lower on 5G compared to 4G. So some of the spectrums over there, you have N48, which is the CBRS band. Then N77 is going to be more of like your Canadian band up there in Canada and also in the UK and Europe. So N77 is really important for those markets. And then N78 kind of mixes through all of CBRS and then a little bit extra. There's also N41, which is going to be your EDU band as well as tribal. So look for all those bands to be kind of the key for 5G, especially with us here at Baicells. All right. So how does 5G compare? So we have our 5G versus 4G versus 6G. Ben, you want to go over a little of this?
Yeah, if I get off of mute, I'll be more than happy to.
Right.
So again, with the big differentials, it's going to come down to your download speed, like Erik mentioned, but more importantly, your capacity. So you have more capacity per channel with as you go up in that number. So your 4G, you're looking at 150, 5G, 850, and then 6 all the way up to 1.6. So you're going to get more range as you get up to the 6 gig area. But the big takeaway from this is that your downlink capacity per channel is really going to increase. And as you can see, we're not talking doubling from 4G to 5G. It's about 4 times as more. So 4 times plus is more. So you're really going to start getting the more capacity needed. So if capacity is not as much of a requirement, then of course you can start looking at the 4G or even the 5G. But as we know, as the world and technology has evolved, capacity is the big thing, right? Everybody says, oh, I need gigabit this, I need 2 gig that. When Whether you actually do or not is a completely different webinar. But the capacity is the big thing. And when you start looking at your proprietaries standards, you start looking at that more capacity. And so that's really the big thing to take away from that. Once you get up into the 6G, it is also completely unlicensed. There is some licensed aspects of the 4G and the 5G that you need to be aware of. But beyond that, the latency, Erik hit on it just a second ago. But as you can see, 200 milliseconds up to down to 15 milliseconds. I mean, with everything being online from gaming to video calls such as this, latency is the key thing there. Nobody wants choppy. Nobody wants to wait for buffering. So the latency and the capacity are the two big things to take away from why each step up is going to be that much better for you.
Perfect. And the other things to notice here is when you're dealing with the 6 gigahertz with the proprietary solutions, to get, those gigabit speeds, you really are suffering with your distances. Whereas with 4G, you could go a little bit farther, but you're not getting as much. And same thing with 5G here. And the reason for this isn't for any other reason than just the power output itself. So with 4G and 5G, they're again the same bands, the same power output for the CBRS band at 47 dB, whereas the licensed that you have in like band 41, you have unlimited power, whatever it can do. The proprietary solutions, though, you are limited based upon that AFC, those uni bands telling you exactly how much you can deploy on. So you have your good, you have your bad. You just have to take what you can do um, with what you're trying to do. So proprietary is good, short distances, much, much larger throughput. But when you're dealing with just 4G and 5G, that LTE technology, you have your fixed wireless, but you also have more than just fixed wireless where you can do tablets and indoor units and everything else. All right. So let me see if I can figure out how to move it. All right, there we go. So why do enterprises love 5G? High throughput, the resilience and reliability, and it's incredibly secure. Um, I always make the joke that you've never heard of somebody actually hacking a 5G an LTE solution, but you have heard that in Wi-Fi. So with LTE, you've only seen it on something like Mission Impossible, but it doesn't happen. So 5G and 4G is incredibly secure. The top pain points for enterprises looking at this is the backwards compatibility and interoperability. As we were moving to that standalone, looking back, it doesn't really communicate with all of them. So you just need to make sure that all of those devices are 5G ready. All right. And 5G meets all of the enterprise's needs and their pain points. So we talked about 5G. Now let's talk about Baicells 5G. With 5G, it's 5G on an IT budget. It's lower OpEx, lower CapEx. That's what you get with Baicells. The OpEx, believe it or not, we have free tech support and free firmware for life. You buy one of our radios, and you get that as part of just buying in with Baicells. The tech support is strictly email with the free, but we do have other versions of it. And again, that lowers your OpEx value. And again, our CapEx is extremely cheap as well. We're standard based, so interoperability. You heard Benton talk about all the different products Winncom has to offer. If you don't like a buy-sell CPE, Winncom has, three other different vendors, at least three other different vendors that can provide CPEs. The other part of that is sometimes Baicells doesn't have all the CPEs you would want. There's tablets. We don't offer tablets. There's the video cameras. We don't offer those as well. That's where that interop comes into play. We provide, and 5G in general provides indoor, outdoor, local, and wide area coverage with full mobility. Again, you can't get that with a proprietary, but you could set up a network inside, have it roam outside, and even go on into an entire campus, into an entire city of your own private network that you're running yourself. Um, that's something that LTE provides. And then again, end-to-end security, no issues whatsoever with your secure network. All right, some emerging scenarios. Ben, you want to cover this one?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the things that really kind of you need to think about is that there's a lot of opportunities that maybe your traditional train of thought went to a Wi-Fi based standard, where 5G has emerged to be a superior option, where maybe you're not necessarily thinking about it. So anything like workplace comms, so large office buildings with multiple cubicles, multiple offices, advanced collaboration tools, IT admins, network management, advanced analytics, all those things is where wireless is been used by employees. But you also have to think about automations, M2M communications, remote monitoring, oil and gas, like Erik mentioned earlier. One of the big things that we've seen a lot of people come to us for a 5G network have been farms. We did a large project with a dairy farm. Anything where that zero handoff is important, or anything where you're trying to cover a larger area where normally you would say, okay, I got to put up an access point for Wi-Fi based. I got to put up an access point every 80 to 120 feet, separate them, do some channel planning, all that fun stuff that causes way more work and way more headache and way more pain points. You're going to be able to put in a 5G network, and it's going to be seamless across your entire landscape. So again, anything like a manufacturing plant, anything like car dealerships, anything, think large scale. And that's where you're really going to see 5G outperform your basic Wi-Fi, because again, it is going to be managed in one single pane of glass, but more importantly, it allows you to own the entire network opposed to relying on individual access points. And then you start getting sticky access points where you're not handing off or whatever it might be. 5G is going to allow you to get away from that and allow you to actually roam throughout your entire property, or an entire office or entire building, with a very seamless transition from floor to floor, building to building, whatever it might be, campus wide networks with education and things like that as well. So again, start thinking anything you've done with Wi-Fi in the past. If you think about that larger scale opportunity, that's where 5G is really going to come in and fit the mold.
All right, perfect. So who's leveraging the emerging network solutions? Like Ben said, everybody. It's a forward way of thinking now of what do I need to do? 5G can do it. So your AR tools, you need less latency. 5G can do it. Your robots and drones, the distance that Benton was just talking about, 5G can do it. Autonomous vehicles, so you have the throughput and the latency for autonomous vehicles. All that is part of 5G. Every scenario that you could think of, 5G can actually fit it. So you could buy it for one thing. So let's say logistics buys it just for their scanners. I'm buying it just so I can start with my scanners. Then you can say, what else can I do with this? Oh, I could do my autonomous robots with it. All right, that's awesome. What else? Oh, I could do my video streams across this network as well. You can continuously add network upon network upon network across one LTE 5G solution. All right, so some of the early adopters, we're going to go through three kind of verticals, where it's at, where it's going. So smart cities. Now we're looking at very large cities. Let's take the picture here, Vegas. They just had that F1 event there back in October and November. They had video feeds throughout the entire F1 event, all coming back on LTE. They had body cams for different first responders out there. And they could also put autonomous vehicles across this to where they no longer have to worry about buses and trolleys. They could actually utilize autonomous vehicles. So smart cities, it's truly a growing vertical very quickly. Currently, the market size is $1.1 trillion, and we're expecting a 22% growth rate per year through 2030. So imagine just getting, like, I don't know, 2% of that 1 trillion. I think we'd all be happy with just that amount there. Oil and gas. IWCE is next week, and oil and gas and mining, all of that is a huge part of IWCE. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is that our Aurora 243 is Class 1 Div 2, and that's intrinsically safe. Very hardened device that you need in these types of environments. Um, our so within those, say, let's say you're in Western Texas where you don't have any kind of cellular coverage, you could actually start deploying your 4G or 5G out there. With a small cell from Baicells, lower power consumption, but you could go longer distances with these deployments than what you would with, like Ben mentioned, your typical Wi-Fi. What you could do is monitor fields with IoT and LoRaWAN, bring back your video feeds. And I think what's most important that's truly overlooked is actually this VoLTE traffic for techs. It will improve their safety and then less time to action if a tech needs assistance. Say they're 4 hours out, they don't have cell coverage, but what if they forgot something? What if something happens to them? If they don't have any kind of coverage to get back in time, that means that, one, they could be injured longer, or two, they could get the problem fixed sooner. So that less time to action is huge just by deploying an LTE network. So currently, well, as of 2 years ago, I guess I should update this. The oil and gas $1.6 billion industry in North America with the networks, and it's going to be a continued growth rate of 6%. Warehouse and logistics, one of the best ones. There are 3.3 million warehouses globally. 3.3 million warehouses. That's incredible. Um, what does private LTE 5G, 4G offer when it comes to warehousing and logistics? It offers a complete control of the operation. So low latency scanners, IoT sensors, surveillance, autonomous robots, all of that can be done for your warehousing, for your ports. That's just something that can be done. ModX was last week in Atlanta, and a big point of ModX was actually talking about private networks within your logistics. So this is definitely something to keep an eye out. It's up to 80% cheaper to deploy than Wi-Fi. And the reason for that is actually because of that power. As these warehouses fill up, the Wi-Fi signal dies quickly, whereas LTE, it utilizes I can't think of the word right now, but it uses the multi beams that bounce off all of the products to get back. So LTE actually shines in scenarios like this, whereas Wi-Fi starts to die more. And in 2023, warehousing was a $20 billion industry. All right, so the takeaways. Enterprises are drastically accelerating 5G options. Baicells provides a low-cost 5G solution that meets their needs, and the next opportunity, whatever you could think of, is well within your grasp. All you have to do is reach out to Benton Cook at Winncom for your free consultation for your private LTE deployment. All right, that's basically the end of it, guys. Does anyone have any questions?
I've got a couple questions that came in, Erik, and I'll let you take on the first one.
Okay.
When you were mentioning standalone versus non-standalone, can you give a breakdown as to why one versus the other, or maybe a scenario why you would choose, and more importantly, a standalone, seeming that non-standalone seems to be the better option?
So yes, non-standalone is more backwards compatible. That would be the better option. But as you start advancing just into your pure 5G networks, some of your G Node Bs, those base stations, require a standalone network, and that just provides the new way the EPC, that core, that standalone core, will function to give you that more throughput, to give you the less latency. So having a true 5G solution does involve being standalone.
Okay, and then the other one, which we kind of touched on, so we'll just kind of recap it. Working on a project, customers asking for a Wi-Fi based solution. I've tried to propose 5G as an option. Can you give me 2 or 3 bullet points as to why why the customer should look at 5G over Wi-Fi? And again, I think we talked about it. I mean, the cost obviously being one of the biggest things. The seamless handoff, owning your own network. There's obviously we've touched on a lot of those. Is there anything else that maybe we missed, or anything else that you kind of want to add to that?
One thing I do like to add to it is that cost. As you're deploying, it doesn't matter where it's at, but we could take a warehouse, for example. One of our 4G LTE indoor eNode Bs will cover up to 30,000 square foot. With a Wi-Fi access point, you're not going to get probably a quarter of that. So you will be deploying, 4 to 10 times more Wi-Fi access points than LTE eNode Bs. That alone is going to significantly reduce your cost just for labor alone.
Yeah, and again, I think to kind of piggyback off of that, the network security that you get with owning your own network, and I think you touched on it at the very beginning, but
Mhm.
the you don't. What was your exact words? You hear about Wi-Fi and those kinds of networks being hacked. You don't hear about 5G networks getting hacked.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually just take the instance that I think there's a summit once a year somewhere in Europe where they'll get together and see who could hack a Wi-Fi network the fastest. You don't hear that for LTE.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, again, there's if for that person that had that question, if you have any follow-ups, please feel free to reach out to myself and Eric, and we'll be more than happy to kind of give you a breakdown and a little bit of a deeper depth. But there is obviously a lot of benefits as to why 5G. If you're going to go put up one access point, maybe not, right? But when you start looking at larger deployments, 5G obviously is the better, more secure, more cost-effective, and I think more at the end of the day, more user friendly, especially if you plan on handing that project off to, say, an IT manager at said warehouse or at said location, because it's less for them to worry about. They have one network opposed to worrying about multiple access points and where the problem might be.
Well said. All right, did we get any other questions, Benton?
That's the only two I got on here, sir.
All right, perfect.
So I guess with that, we will go ahead and wrap. Again, if Eric and myself, both of our emails are at the bottom there. We again want to thank everybody for joining us today. If you have any follow-up questions or projects or anything that you're working on, please feel free to reach out to either one of us, and we'll be more than happy to get you squared away. Again, thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week. Have a great weekend. A lot of basketball on, so go Cox. And if there's anything else we can do for y'all, please let us know.
Awesome. Take care, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.